The massive space station hung like a jewel against the darkness. Its curved arms stretched outward, lights twinkling along their length. This was Concord Station, the pride of the galactic Concord and home to over 200 alien species. Jin-Ha stood at the viewing window of the diplomatic reception hall. His blue-gray skin reflected the starlight as he watched the approaching human ship. It was smaller than he expected, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in weapons. Even from this distance he could see the gun ports and missile tubes that lined its hull. "They arm even their diplomatic vessels," said Quan, who stood beside him. As head of security, Quan always noticed weapons first. Jin-Ha nodded. Yes, curious behavior for a species seeking peaceful relations. The human ship docked with surprising grace. Jin-Ha straightened his formal robes, deep purple with silver trim that marked him as Chief Diplomat of the Galactic Concord. He had met hundreds of new species in his 50 years of service, but humans were different. They had appeared at the edge of known space just 3 years ago, and already they controlled 12 star systems. "Remember the protocol," Jin-Ha told his staff. "No sudden movements. Humans evolved as prey animals and still have quick startle responses." The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss. 4 humans entered first, clearly security personnel. They wore simple black uniforms with no visible weapons, but Jin-Ha's hidden scanners detected energy pistols and at least 2 knives per person. They moved with the careful precision of trained fighters, eyes scanning every corner of the room. Then came the diplomats. 3 humans in formal attire that mimicked styles from across the galaxy. A clever touch that showed research and respect. At their center walked a woman with short black hair and alert eyes. Ambassador Harin, according to the briefing files. "Welcome to Concord Station," Jin-Ha said, bowing slightly. "I am Jin-Ha, Chief Diplomat of the Galactic Concord." Harin returned the bow with perfect form. "The honor is ours, Chief Diplomat. I am Harin, representing Earth and her colonies." Jin-Ha noticed she wore a ceremonial blade at her hip. His scanners also detected a small energy weapon hidden in her sleeve. Even their ambassador came armed to a peace meeting. "Please, follow me," Jin-Ha said. "We have prepared refreshments suitable for human biology." As they walked through the grand hallways of the station, Jin-Ha observed the humans closely. They moved as a unit, their security personnel maintaining perfect positions around the diplomats. Their eyes never stopped moving, noting exits, checking corners, watching his staff. "Your station is impressive," Harin said. "How many people live here?" "Approximately 50,000, Jin-Ha replied. "Representatives from all 217 member species of the Concord." "And your security measures?" she asked casually. Jin-Ha tilted his head. "We have standard safety protocols, of course, but the Concord has known peace for over 1,000 years. We have little need for extensive security." Something flickered in Harin's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or concern. 1,000 years of peace is a remarkable achievement. They entered the diplomatic dining hall. A long table held foods from dozens of worlds, including Earth dishes prepared according to the information humans had shared. "Please, enjoy," Jin-Ha said. "We hope these meet your expectations." The human security team moved forward first. One of them used a small device to scan the food before nodding to Harin. Only then did the diplomatic team approach the table. "You test your food," Jin-Ha observed. "You fear poison at a diplomatic function?" Harin smiled, but her eyes remained serious. "It's standard protocol, nothing more. A precaution we take everywhere, even on Earth." "Against whom?" Jin-Ha asked. "Against the unknown," she replied simply. As the reception continued, Jin-Ha introduced Harin to representatives from other conquered species. The humans were polite but guarded. They asked many questions about defense systems, emergency protocols, and military capabilities, topics rarely discussed at first meetings. Later, when most guests had departed, Jin-Ha approached Harin again. She stood by the viewing window, looking out at the stars and the human ship docked below. "Ambassador, may I ask you a direct question?" Jin-Ha said. Harin turned to him. "Of course. Why are humans so heavily armed? Your ships carry weapons, that could destroy small moons. Your people carry hidden blades and energy weapons even to peace talks. What are you afraid of? Harren was quiet for a moment. It's not fear, Chief Diplomat, it's preparation. For what? For whatever comes next. She gestured to the stars. The galaxy is vast and largely unknown. We've already encountered pirates and raiders in the systems beyond yours. We've seen evidence of civilizations that rose and fell before either of us reached the stars. Jinha frowned. The Conquered has explored thousands of systems. We've found no threats that would justify such readiness for violence. Then you've been fortunate, Harren said. Or perhaps you haven't looked in the right places. A human male approached them, Rex the military attaché. He bowed respectfully to Jinha. Ambassador, the security sweep is complete, Rex said to Harren. Our quarters appear suitable. Jinha blinked in surprise. You conducted a security sweep of diplomatic quarters? Standard procedure, Rex said without apology. We meant no offense? None taken, Jinha replied, though he found the behavior strange. I hope you found everything satisfactory. Rex nodded. Your hospitality is appreciated. After the humans retired to their quarters, Jinha returned to his private office. He activated his computer terminal with a wave of his hand. Computer, access all available data on human evolutionary history, he commanded. The screen filled with images and text. Primitive humans hunting large animals with simple spears. Humans building shelters against harsh weather. Humans fighting each other with increasingly deadly weapons. Unlike most spacefaring races, humans had not evolved past violence before reaching the stars. They had simply brought their weapons with them. Jinha read deep into the night. He learned that humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They had survived ice ages, massive predators, plagues, and their own wars. Their history was not a smooth path of progress, but a struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. Most species in the Conquered had evolved either as dedicated predators or prey. Their societies reflected this. Predator species built hierarchical militaries, while prey species created cooperative collectives. Humans showed characteristics of both, yet belonged to neither category. A message alert interrupted his research. It was from Quan. Chief Diplomat, our sensors have detected unusual activity. The humans are scanning our defense systems from their ship. They claim it's standard procedure, but I've never seen such thorough scans. Jinha frowned. Were the humans preparing for an attack? Or were they simply being cautious as they claimed? He closed the historical files and opened a secure channel to Quan. Continue monitoring, but take no action. Tomorrow I want to test their intentions. As he prepared for sleep, Jinha looked out his window at the human ship. Its weapon systems were powered down, but he could see crew members moving about, always alert, always watching. What had shaped a species to be so constantly ready for danger? What history could have forged a people so determined to arm themselves against threats that might not exist? Jinha was determined to find out what lay beneath the humans' armored exterior. For the sake of the Concord, he needed to understand. Were humans preparing for war, or were they simply a species that had learned the hard way to always be ready for the worst? Morning came to Concord Station with the artificial glow of simulated dawn. Jinha rose early, his mind still filled with questions about the humans. He dressed in his formal robes and prepared for the day's diplomatic meetings. His computer terminal chimed with a message from Quan. The humans were active all night. They maintained a rotating watch schedule. Even in safe diplomatic quarters, they post guards. Jinha was not surprised. Everything he had learned about humans suggested they never truly relaxed their vigilance. But why? What dangers had shaped such behavior? He entered his private study and activated the computer again. Continue display of human historical records. Focus on threats and predators from their homeworld. The screen filled with images that made Jinha's skin pale. Earth was beautiful but deadly. Massive creatures with teeth and claws. Tiny insects that carried disease. Plants that could poison, with a touch. Weather that could destroy entire cities. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds with limited threats, Jinha's own people came from a peaceful world with mild weather and few predators, but Earth seemed designed to kill its inhabitants. A knock at his door interrupted his research. "Enter," he called. Quan stepped inside, his face serious. "The human ambassador has requested a tour of our historical archives. She claims interest in conquered history." Jinha closed the display of Earth's predators. "Grant her request. I will accompany her myself." An hour later, Jinha met Ha-Rin at the entrance to the vast archives. She wore a simple blue uniform today, but Jinha's scanner still detected the hidden weapon in her sleeve and another at her ankle. "Thank you for agreeing to this tour," Ha-Rin said with a smile. "We believe understanding history is essential to building strong relationships." "A sentiment the Concord shares," Jinha replied. "Our archives contain records from all member species, dating back thousands of years." They walked through the massive library. Holographic displays showed key moments in Concord history: the founding treaty, first contact with new species, technological breakthroughs. Ha-Rin stopped at a display showing the Great Peace Accord that had ended the last major conflict in Yi, Concord space over 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years without war, she said quietly. "It seems impossible." "Not impossible," Jinha corrected. "Simply the natural evolution of civilized species. Violence is inefficient. Cooperation benefits." "Oh." Ha-Rin's eyes met his. "On Earth, peace never lasted. Someone always wanted more. More land, more resources, more power. And this is why humans arm themselves so heavily? Because you expect betrayal?" "We prepare for possibilities," Ha-Rin said. "It's different." They continued through the archives. Ha-Rin asked pointed questions about defensive capabilities, military history, and conflict resolution. Jinha answered honestly but noted her focus. "Ambassador," he said finally, "you seem particularly interested in our defensive capabilities. May I ask why?" Ha-Rin paused before a display showing the Concord's peaceful expansion across the galaxy. "In our brief time exploring space, we've encountered 3 different hostile species. 2 attacked without communication. 1 pretended to be friendly, then attempted to seize our colony ships." Jinha blinked in surprise. 3 hostile species? In just 3 years of space travel? "Yes." Ha-Rin's face was serious. "We lost 200 colonists before we developed better defenses. The Concord has encountered no such threats in 1,000 years, Jinha said. "Then you've been fortunate," Ha-Rin replied. "Or perhaps you simply haven't explored the same regions we have." Later that day, Jinha met with his advisory council. 5 senior diplomats from different Concord species gathered in his private meeting room. "The humans are concerning," said Tella, the eldest advisor. Her thin, pale body seemed to float in her chair. "Their focus on weapons and defense suggests aggressive intentions." "I disagree," countered Moro, whose thick fur rippled with emotion. "They seem cautious, not aggressive. There's a difference." Jinha raised a hand for silence. "I believe neither assessment is complete. I've been studying human history. Their homeworld is unusually dangerous. They evolved as prey animals, but developed intelligence to overcome stronger predators." He activated a display showing Earth's history of natural disasters, predators, and human conflicts. "Most species in the Concord evolved either as dedicated predators or prey," Jinha explained. "Humans were both. They were hunted but became hunters. They faced extinction multiple times but survived through adaptation and tool use. This explains their caution," Moro said. "But not their weapons." Jinha nodded. "For that, we must look at their social evolution. Unlike us, humans never achieved species-wide unity until very recently. They spent thousands of years divided into competing groups. War was common." The advisors murmured in concern. "Are they safe to include in the Concord?" Tella asked. "That is what I aim to determine," Jinha replied. "Tomorrow, I will test their intentions." The next morning, Jinha invited Ha-Rin to observe Concord Station's defensive systems demonstration, a carefully controlled test that revealed some capabilities while hiding others. They stood in the command center as technicians, ran the simulation, shields activated around the station, and defensive weapon systems came online for maintenance checks. Impressive, Harin said, watching the energy readings. Though your power distribution seems inefficient, you could increase shield strength by 30% with a different configuration. Jinha tilted his head. You have suggestions for our defensive systems? Just an observation, Harin said. On our colony worlds, efficient defense is essential. Against these hostile species you mentioned? Harin nodded. And others we haven't met yet. Jinha studied her face. Ambassador, in all honesty, the Concord has explored this region of space for thousands of years. We have found no evidence of these aggressive species you describe. With respect, Chief Diplomat, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Harin's eyes were serious. The galaxy is vast. There are dark spaces between the stars where dangers hide. After the demonstration, Jinha walked with Harin through the station's garden dome. Artificial sunlight streamed through transparent panels, nurturing plants from 100 worlds. May I ask you a personal question, Ambassador? Jinha said as they paused beside a fountain. Of course. Do humans ever feel safe? Truly safe? Harin considered the question. Some do, briefly, in protected places with loved ones nearby. She looked up at the stars visible through the dome. But safety is an illusion. The universe is indifferent to our survival. Only preparation and vigilance ensure we see tomorrow. That seems a heavy burden to carry, Jinha observed. It's simply our reality, Harin replied. From birth, humans face a world that can kill them in countless ways. Those who forget this rarely survive to reproduce. Jinha was silent for a moment. The Conquered believes in peace through mutual disarmament. Your philosophy seems contradictory to our foundation. Perhaps, Harin said, or perhaps complementary. Peace is valuable precisely because it is fragile. That evening, Jinha received an urgent message from Quan. He hurried to the security center where Quan waited with a troubled expression. The humans have requested access to our defensive specifications, Quan reported. They claim it's standard diplomatic procedure for potential allies. Jinha frowned. Denied, but offer them a tour of the public sections instead. I want to observe their reactions. There's more, Quan said. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity at the edge of this system. 3 unidentified ships moving slowly toward the station. Pirates? Jinha asked. Unknown. They're not responding to hails. Jinha thought of Harin's warnings about hostile species. Was this coincidence or something more sinister? Increase alert status, Jinha ordered. But do not inform the humans yet. I want to see how this develops. As he left the security center, Jinha wondered if the humans' paranoia was justified after all. Perhaps the galaxy beyond conquered space was more dangerous than they had believed. Or perhaps the humans themselves were the danger they so carefully prepared for. Either way, Jinha knew the next day would reveal the truth. Jinha slept poorly that night. The unidentified ships at the edge of the system troubled him. They had stopped moving but remained present, like predators watching from the shadows. He rose early and checked the security reports. The ships had not moved closer, but they had not left either. They remained silent, ignoring all attempts at communication. Update me immediately if anything changes, Jinha told Quan during their morning briefing. Yes, Chief Diplomat. Should we inform the human delegation? Jinha considered this. Not yet. I want to observe their normal behavior today. The morning proceeded with scheduled diplomatic meetings. The humans presented trade proposals and discussed potential cultural exchanges. Harin was polite and professional, showing no sign that she knew about the mysterious ships. During a break between meetings, Jinha approached Harin in the station's observation lounge. She stood alone, looking out at the stars. Ambassador, may I join you? Jinha asked. Harin turned and smiled. Of course, Chief Diplomat. Jinha stood beside her at the window. I've been reflecting on our conversation yesterday, about safety and preparation. Yes? You mentioned encountering hostile species in your explorations. Could you tell me more about them? Harin's expression grew serious. The first we called the Shadows. They attacked without warning or communication. Their ships were fast with powerful energy weapons. They targeted our engines first, then life support. How did you survive? Jinha asked. Our ships were armed. Not heavily at first, but enough to fight back while we escaped. Harin's eyes grew distant. After that, we increased our weapons. The next time we encountered them, we were ready. And the others? The second species communicated claimed to be peaceful traders. They invited our representatives aboard their ship, then took them hostage and demanded our technology. Harin's voice hardened. We refused to negotiate with them. Our rescue team recovered our people. Jinha noted she didn't explain how the rescue occurred. The third were scavengers. They attacked damaged or isolated ships, stripped them of resources and left the crews to die. Harin turned to face Jinha directly. Chief Diplomat, the galaxy beyond your concord is not peaceful. There are predators in the dark. Jinha was about to respond when his communication device chimed urgently. He answered it. Chief Diplomat. Quan's voice was tense. The unidentified ships are moving. They've accelerated toward the station. Jinha felt a cold sensation in his chest. I'll be right there. He looked at Harin. Ambassador, please excuse me. A matter requires my attention. Harin's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course. Jinha hurried to the command center. The main screen showed 3 ships approaching, rapidly. They were dark, with strange angular designs unlike any conquered vessel. They've disabled our outer sensor array, Quan reported, and they're not responding to hails. Activate defensive shields, Jinha ordered, and continue attempting communication. The station's shields hummed to life, a precaution that hadn't been necessary in decades. Sir, one of the technicians called. The shields are only at 60% capacity. The system hasn't been fully tested in years. Jinha felt fear rising. The Concorde had maintained peace for so long that their defenses had become ceremonial rather than functional. The lead ship has fired some kind of energy pulse, Quan announced. It's disrupting our communication systems. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Jinha watched helplessly as the ships drew closer. The Concorde's defensive weapons were minimal, designed more to destroy space debris than to fight off attackers. The command center doors slid open. Harin entered, followed by Rex and 2 other humans. Chief Diplomat, Harin said urgently. We've detected hostile ships approaching the station. Jinha turned to her. How did you know? Our ship's sensors detected them yesterday, Rex explained. We've been monitoring them since. You knew and didn't inform us? Jinha asked, anger rising. We were assessing the threat, Harin said calmly. We've seen these ships before. They match the signature of the scavengers I told you about. Jinha stared at her. You've encountered these specific ships? Yes. They target stations and colonies with valuable resources and weak defenses. Harin's eyes were hard now, all diplomacy set aside. Your station is both. A loud boom shook the command center. The lights flickered. They've breached the outer shield, Quan shouted. Inner shield's at 40% and failing. Jinha felt panic rising. The station held 50,000 civilians from hundreds of species. None of them were prepared for an attack. Chief Diplomat, Harin said firmly, our vessel can intercept them. We have weapons capable of disabling their ships without destroying them. Jinha hesitated. Accepting help meant admitting weakness. Yet the alternative seemed worse. The inner shield is failing, Quan reported. They'll breach the station in minutes. Very well, Jinha decided. Ambassador Harin, we accept your assistance. Harin nodded and touched a communication device on her wrist. Captain, you have authorization. Defensive pattern Alpha. Disable. Only. On the main screen, the human diplomatic vessel suddenly came to life. What had appeared to be decorative elements along its hull opened to reveal weapon ports. The ship moved with surprising speed, positioning itself between the station and the attackers. What kind of diplomatic vessel carries such weapons? Jinha asked, watching in amazement. A human one, Rex answered simply. The human ship fired precise energy beams at the lead attacker. The beams didn't target the ship's main body, but instead hit specific points on its hull. They're targeting engines and weapon systems, Rex explained. Disabling, not destroying. The lead attacker ship slowed, its lights flickering. The other two ships changed course, attempting to flank the human vessel. Evasive pattern Delta, Harin ordered into her communicator. Deploy countermeasures. The human ship released small objects that quickly surrounded the attacking vessels. They exploded in bright flashes that seemed to disrupt the attacker's systems. EMP devices, Rex said. They'll temporarily disable their electronics without, causing permanent damage. Jinha watched in astonishment as the relatively small human ship outmaneuvered and disabled all three attackers in less than 10 minutes. The scavenger ships now drifted powerless, no longer a threat. They're retreating, Quan announced as the ship slowly turned away, limping on backup power. The command center was silent for a moment, then applause broke out among the Concorde staff. Jinha turned to Harin. Your diplomatic vessel just outmatched 3 attack ships. Harin's expression remained neutral. As I said, we believe in being prepared. You saved thousands of lives today, Jinha acknowledged. The Concorde owes you a debt. No debt, Harin replied. Allies help each other. Later, after security teams had confirmed the station was safe and the attackers had left the system, Jinha invited Harin to his private office. Those ships, he said as they sat down. You recognized them immediately. Yes. We've encountered them twice before. They target isolated outposts and stations, steal resources, sometimes take captives. Harin's eyes were serious. They're the reason we arm our ships so heavily. The Concorde has no record of such attacks in our space, Jinha said. Perhaps they avoided Concorde space until now. Or perhaps... Harin hesitated. Perhaps what? Perhaps attacks have occurred but in distant outposts, places where communications might be lost without raising alarms. Harin leaned forward. Chief Diplomat, how often do you check on your most remote stations? Jinha felt cold at the implication. We maintain regular communication schedules. And if a station misses a check-in? We send investigators, Jinha said, but even as he spoke, he realized how long such a response would take. Days, sometimes weeks. The galaxy is changing, Harin said gently. The peace you've known is valuable, but peace requires strength to maintain. Jinha looked at her with new understanding. This is why humans are so heavily armed. Not because you want war, but because we've seen what happens without the ability to defend ourselves. Harin finished. History has taught us this lesson, repeatedly. Jinha nodded slowly. I believe I'm beginning to understand your people better, Ambassador. As Harin left his office, Jinha turned to look out at the stars. The galaxy suddenly seemed darker, more dangerous than before. Perhaps the humans' caution wasn't paranoia after all, but wisdom born from hard experience. The day after the attack, Concorde Station hummed with nervous energy. News of the scavenger ships had spread quickly. Many residents had never experienced danger before, and fear lingered in the air like a heavy scent. Jinha called an emergency meeting of the Concorde Council. 20 representatives from the most influential member species gathered in the Grand Council chamber. Their faces showed concern, confusion, and in some cases anger. How could this happen? Demanded Tella, her thin body trembling with emotion. The Concorde has maintained peace for 1,000 years. Peace is not the same as safety, Jinha replied calmly. We have been fortunate, not invincible. And these humans, said Moro, his fur bristling. They knew about the threat but said nothing until the attack began. Jinha raised a hand for silence. The humans monitored the situation. When the attack came, they defended us at risk to themselves. With weapons they brought to a diplomatic mission, Tella pointed out. Weapons they concealed from us. Not concealed, Jinha corrected. We saw their weapons. We simply chose not to understand why they carried them. The council chamber grew quiet. Jinha looked at each representative in turn. I have invited Ambassador Ha-Rin to address the council, he announced. I believe we have much to learn from the humans. Some council members protested, but Jinha's decision was final. An hour later, Ha-Rin entered the chamber alone. She wore formal diplomatic attire, but still carried her hidden weapons. Jinha's scanners detected them, but he no longer questioned their presence. Ambassador, Jinha said, thank you for coming. The council has questions about yesterday's events. Ha-Rin bowed respectfully to the assembled representatives. I will answer honestly. How did you know those ships would attack? Tella asked immediately. We recognize their design and behavior patterns, Ha-Rin explained. We've encountered them before in other systems. Why didn't you warn us? Moro demanded. We were assessing the threat level and preparing our response, Ha-Rin said calmly. We didn't want to cause panic before we were certain of their intentions. Your ship carried weapons far beyond what is necessary for self-defense, said another representative. Why? Ha-Rin's expression remained neutral. What you consider excessive, we consider essential. The weapons that seemed unnecessary yesterday saved this station today. The questioning continued for another hour. Ha-Rin answered each query with patience and clarity. She explained human security protocols, defensive strategies, and their experiences with hostile species beyond conquered space. When the council finally adjourned, Jinha escorted Ha-Rin from the chamber. You handled that well, he observed as they walked through the station corridors. Political bodies are similar across species, Ha-Rin replied with a small smile. Fear and anger are universal reactions to unexpected danger. Jinha nodded. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about the galaxy changing. Yes? I would like to understand more, Jinha said. Not just about the threats you've faced, but about humans themselves. What made you who you are? Ha-Rin considered this request. I can arrange that. Would you be willing to visit our ship tomorrow? There are things easier to show than explain. The next morning, Jinha boarded the human vessel for the first time. From the outside, it had appeared to be a standard diplomatic ship, albeit heavily armed. Inside, it was a revelation. Every system had backups. Every crew member was cross-trained in multiple roles. What appeared to be decorative wall panels concealed emergency equipment and weapons. Your entire ship is designed for survival, Jinha observed as Rex led the tour. Yes, Rex confirmed. Humans plan for failure. We assume things will go wrong, and prepare accordingly. They entered a room filled with holographic displays. Ha-Rin waited for them there. This is our historical archive, she explained. Similar to your station's library, but focused on human evolution and history. She activated the main display. Images appeared showing primitive humans on the plains of Earth. We began as prey animals, Ha-Rin explained. Slower than predators, with no natural weapons, no claws or fangs. We were hunted by faster, stronger creatures. The display showed early humans being stalked by large predators. How did you survive? Jinha asked. We adapted, Ha-Rin said. We developed tools. We learned to work together. Most importantly, we learned to think ahead, to anticipate threats before they arrived. The display shifted to show humans hunting, in groups using simple spears to take down animals much larger than themselves. We became predators ourselves, Ha-Rin continued. But we never forgot what it meant to be prey. That memory is in our DNA, in our instincts. We jump at sudden noises. We fear the dark. We sense when we're being watched. Jinha watched, fascinated, as the display showed human civilization developing. Unlike most species in the Concord, humans had never achieved early unity. They had remained divided into competing groups for most of their history. This competition drove innovation, Ha-Rin explained, but it also led to conflict. The display showed human wars throughout history, each more destructive than the last. You nearly destroyed yourselves, Jinha observed. Several times, Ha-Rin agreed. Each time we came to the edge of extinction and pulled back. We learned from our mistakes, sometimes. The display changed again, showing humans exploring their solar system, then venturing to nearby stars. When we reached space, we hoped to find peace, Harin said. Instead, we found new dangers. The scavengers you saw yesterday, the shadows I told you about, others. Have you ever encountered a truly peaceful species? Jinha asked. Harin smiled. Yes. The Conquered is the first major peaceful coalition we've found. That's why this alliance matters to us. Jinha was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. I requested this meeting to understand why humans are so heavily armed. I think I'm beginning to see. Are you? Harin asked. You arm yourselves because your history has taught you that safety requires strength, Jinha said. You prepare for the worst because you've experienced it before. That's part of it, Harin acknowledged. But there's more. She changed the display again. Now it showed a small human colony on a distant world. The buildings were simple but sturdy, surrounded by defensive barriers. This is New Haven, one of our first colonies outside our home system, Harin explained. 2 years ago it was attacked by the shadows I told you about. The display showed dark ships descending on the colony. Buildings exploded. People ran for shelter. The colony's defenses were minimal, Harin continued. We had followed standard protocols from Earth, defensive barriers, basic weapons. We weren't prepared for the level of attack that came. Jinha watched as the colony's defenses failed one by one. How many died? He asked quietly. 73 colonists, Harin replied, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Including children. The display shifted to show the aftermath. Humans, rebuilding but differently now. The new structures were more heavily fortified. Weapon emplacements surrounded the colony. After New Haven, we changed our approach to colonization, Harin said. Every colony now has defensive capabilities that would have seemed excessive before. Every ship carries weapons that could destroy the vessels that attacked us. You adapted, Jinha observed. Yes, as we always have. Harin turned to face him, directly. Chief Diplomat, humans don't arm ourselves because we want conflict. We arm ourselves because we've learned that peace must sometimes be defended. Jinha considered this. The Concord has maintained peace through diplomacy and mutual disarmament. And that has worked within your borders, Harin acknowledged. But beyond those borders lie species that don't share your values, species that see your peace as weakness. Like the scavengers, Jinha said, and others. Harin's eyes were serious. The galaxy is vast and largely unknown. The Concord has been fortunate, but fortune changes. Jinha was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been troubling him since the attack. Ambassador, do you believe the Concord's approach to peace is flawed? Harin chose, her words carefully. I believe different approaches serve different purposes. The Concord has created something remarkable. Hundreds of species living together in harmony. That deserves protection. Protection that requires strength, Jinha concluded. Yes, Harin nodded. Peace without the ability to defend it is just good fortune, and fortune is fickle. As they left the human ship, Jinha felt as though he was seeing the galaxy with new eyes. The peaceful existence the Conquered had enjoyed for 1,000 years suddenly seemed fragile, dependent on luck rather than design. I will recommend to the Council that we review our defensive capabilities, Jinha told Harin as they parted. Yesterday's attack revealed weaknesses we can no longer ignore. Harin smiled. The humans have a saying, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. It has kept us alive through countless disasters. Jinha nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps there is wisdom in your caution after all. As he watched Harin return to her ship, Jinha wondered what other lessons humans might teach the Conquered. Their history of survival against overwhelming odds had forged a species unlike any in known space, part prey, part predator, and wholly determined to endure. The truth beneath their heavily armed exterior wasn't aggression, as he had first feared. It was something both simpler and more profound, the absolute refusal to become extinct. The final day of the human diplomatic mission arrived. After the attack and the revelations that followed, the mood on Concord Station had changed. The humans were no longer viewed with suspicion but with a new respect. Their weapons, once seen as excessive, now seemed prudent. Jinha stood in his office preparing his final report for the Concord Council. The events of the past week had changed his understanding, not just of humans, but of the galaxy itself. A chime at his door announced a visitor. "Enter," he called. Harin stepped inside. She wore her formal diplomatic uniform ready for the closing ceremony later that day. "Ambassador," Jinha greeted her. "I was just finishing my report on our meetings." "Favorable, I hope," Harin said with a small smile. "Very." Jinha gestured to a chair. "Please sit. There's something I still don't understand about your people." Harin sat down gracefully. "Ask. I'll answer if I can." Jinha chose his words carefully. "I understand now why humans arm themselves. I understand the caution born from your evolutionary history and your experiences in space. But there's something more to humans than just survival instinct." "What do you mean?" Harin asked. "Your people don't just survive. You thrive. You push boundaries. You take risks that seem unnecessary." Jinha leaned forward. "Most species who evolved as prey animals remain cautious, conservative. They avoid danger. Humans seek it out." Harin considered this observation. "You've noticed something important about us, something we sometimes forget ourselves." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars and the human ship docked below. "Do you know the story of Jake Morrison?" she asked. Jinha shook his head. "No. Is he a historical figure?" "Not exactly. He was a colonist on our outpost world, Horizon." Harin's voice grew softer. "When raiders attacked his settlement 3 years ago, they destroyed the defensive systems first. The colony had followed standard protocols at that time: minimal weapons, maximum diplomacy." Jinha felt a chill, remembering how unprepared his own station had been for attack. "Morrison watched his wife die in the first wave," Harin continued. "His children were taken by the raiders. Most people would have hidden, waited for help. Morrison didn't." "What did he do?" Jinha asked. "He repaired an old mining laser that had been damaged in the attack. Alone, he used it to disable the raiders' ship as they were loading stolen supplies. Then he went aboard to find his children." Jinha blinked in surprise. "One man against an entire raider crew? The odds of success would be minimal." "Almost zero," Harin agreed. "He was injured, using a mining tool as a weapon, facing enemies with superior numbers and actual combat training." "He died?" Jinha asked quietly. "No." Harin turned back to face him. "He killed 17 raiders and disabled their ship. He rescued his children and 12 other captives. When our response team finally arrived, they found Morrison standing, guard over the survivors, still holding his makeshift weapon." Jinha was silent for a moment. "How is this possible?" "That's the question I'm trying to answer," Harin said. "Morrison wasn't a soldier. He was a farmer with basic technical skills. By any logical calculation, he should have failed." She returned to her seat. "This is what you're sensing about humans. We don't just prepare for threats, we refuse to accept defeat even when it's logical to do so." "Is this common among your people?" Jinha asked. "More common than you might think." Harin's eyes met his. "Human history is filled with stories of ordinary people doing impossible things when necessary. A mother lifting a vehicle to save her child. A swimmer fighting off a predator to protect others. A single person standing against overwhelming force because it's right." Jinha considered this. "The other species I've studied have survival instincts. They fight when cornered, but what you're describing seems different." "It is," Harin agreed. "We call it many things: courage, determination, grit. But these words don't quite capture it. It's a fire that ignites when we face impossible odds." She leaned forward. "Chief Diplomat, we arm ourselves heavily because we know what it means to be defenseless. But our weapons aren't our greatest strength. Our true power is this refusal to surrender, even when logic says we should." Jinha was quiet for a long time, absorbing this insight. Finally, he asked, "Is this why humans explore such dangerous regions of space? Why you take such risks?" "Partly," Harin acknowledged. "We're curious by nature, but more than that, we believe some things are worth the risk. Discovery, knowledge, connection with other species," she smiled. "The Concord represents something humans have sought for centuries, peaceful cooperation among diverse peoples. We want to be part of that, but we also want to help protect it." Later that day, the formal closing ceremony began in the Grand Hall. Representatives from all conquered species gathered to witness the signing of preliminary agreements with Earth. Jinha stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled dignitaries. The human delegation sat in the front row, their posture alert but relaxed. "Today marks a historic moment for the Conquered," Jinha began. "We welcome representatives from Earth and her colonies as friends and potential allies." He paused, looking directly at Harin. "Recent events have taught us valuable lessons. The peace we have enjoyed for 1,000 years is precious and fragile. Our new human friends have reminded us that peace must be protected." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The attack by the scavenger ships had shaken many Concord citizens from their complacency. "But the humans have shown us something even more important," Jinha continued. "They have shown us that true strength comes not just from weapons or shields, but from within." He gestured to Harin. "Ambassador, would you join me?" Harin rose and walked to the podium. Together they signed the preliminary alliance agreement. The crowd applauded politely. "I have a gift for you," Jinha said quietly as they completed the signing. He handed her a small crystal cube. "This contains the complete historical archives of the Conquered. We offer it as a symbol of trust and shared knowledge." Harin accepted the cube with a formal bow. "Earth is honored by your trust. In return, we offer this." She presented Jinha with a similar device. "This contains Earth's complete astronomical surveys of regions beyond conquered space, including all encounters with hostile species we have documented." Jinha accepted the gift with surprise. Such information was invaluable and potentially dangerous in the wrong hands. The humans were trusting the Concord with their hard-won knowledge. "Thank you, Ambassador," he said sincerely. "This will help us prepare for whatever lies beyond our borders." After the ceremony concluded, Jinha walked with Harin to the docking bay where the human ship prepared for departure. "I have one last question," Jinha said as they reached the airlock. "You told me about Jake Morrison and his impossible victory. What happened to him afterward?" Harin smiled. "He helped rebuild the colony. Then he designed new defensive systems based on his experience. Now he trains other colonists to defend themselves." "He didn't return to farming?" Jinha asked, surprised. "He still farms," Harin said. "But he also prepares. That's the human way. We adapt. We learn. We grow stronger from adversity." She extended her hand in the human gesture of farewell. "The fire that drives us isn't just about survival, Chief Diplomat. It's about thriving, even in the harshest conditions. We were born on a world that should have killed us. We survived ice ages, predators, plagues, and our own worst impulses. We reached the stars not because it was easy, but because it was difficult." Jinha took her hand, understanding the significance of the gesture. "I believe I finally understand why humans are so heavily armed, Ambassador Harin. Not from fear, but from wisdom. Not for conquest, but for protection. And for those we care about," Harin added. "The Concord is now among those we wish to protect." As the human ship departed, Jinha returned to his office to complete his report to the council. He wrote only one recommendation: learn from the humans, for they have learned from everything. He looked out at the stars, seeing them differently now. The galaxy was vast and largely unknown, filled with both wonders and dangers. The Conquered had been fortunate for 1,000 years, but fortune alone was no longer enough. What they needed was the fire that burned within humans, that stubborn refusal to accept defeat, that determination to protect what mattered, that courage to face the unknown not just with weapons, but with hope. Jinha smiled as he watched the human ship disappear into the darkness between stars. They would return soon, he knew, with more ships, more knowledge, and more of that inexplicable human fire that turned mere survival into something greater. Perhaps that was the true answer to why humans were so heavily armed. Not just their weapons, but their spirits. Not just their caution, but their courage. Not just their fear of what lurked in the darkness, but their determination to face it anyway. The fire within, that was humanity's greatest weapon of all,